Serene and gliding underneath your legs.
We'll go ahead and start this meeting. This is May 16th.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, we'll go ahead and start this meeting, the May 16th, 2024 Cannabis Compliance Board meeting. We'll go ahead and get a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Mazzarano.
Here.
Member Jerry Merritt.
Here.
Honorable Michael Douglas.
Here.
Vice Chair Durant.
Here.
Chair Guzman Frelick.
Present.
And Chair, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, before we kick off the meeting, just a quick reminder before we start, we just installed new microphones. They've been installed in the ceiling. If you can see them, they will pick up all sidebar conversations happening in this room, no matter where you're sitting. So please limit your conversations while others are speaking. And if you need to have a conversation during the meeting, we ask that you please step out of the room to do so. Thank you, Chair. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Brother. All right. We'll go ahead and go on to the public comment portion. Again, this is a reminder for the public to come up and say whatever's on your mind we have authority over, but we will limit the public comment to 3 minutes. So with that, do we have to talk about the online?
You'll do, oh yeah, she'll do her first.
To provide public comment via telephone, call 669-444-9171. Enter webinar ID 899-4996-7199, followed by passcode 171471.
Thank you. And with that, we'll go ahead and gather public comment down here on the south. Then we'll go to the north and then we'll do online. So any public comment, go ahead and come to the front. State your name for the record, please.
The record, my name is Bruce Martin. I'm a medical marijuana patient here in Nevada, licensed cultivator also. And I'm here to talk about the terpenes listing labeling, section 12.035 1D. It's in regards to mainly listing the top 3 terpenes. And I know that packaging labels can be quite small. So I have a recommendation to add a QR code to at least provide the top 5 terpenes, excuse me. Because patients look for also minimal visible accumulate on top of the major terpenes of myrcene, limonene, and caryophyllene. Now, those 3 terpenes that are mostly listed are in different orders, but when you add these other terpenes like linalool, visible accumulate, like for me, if unilene comes next as number 4, it's a big no for me. But when I'm out purchasing cannabis, if I run out of my own, then I'm stuck with buying a product that I don't know how it's going to affect me because it only has the top 3 terpenes. So please, I would ask that the board consider adding a QR code because they can be very tiny and still readable. So that way we can have access to the full, even if that can provide the full lab results that we need. So it's been a long time since I spoke in public. Thank you. My name is Bruce Martin. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And really quick, if most of you are here to comment on the regulations, we will have a public comment section during those regulations. So it's up to you if you want to, wait until that time. It might be fresher in our minds while we're under that section. But with that, go ahead and come up. Anybody who has any comments on anything that we have in calendar. Okay. Public comment in the north?
There's no public comment in the north.
Thank you. And public comment online?
To provide public comment, dial *9 to raise your hand if joining by phone. If joining via Zoom, click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Caller with the last four numbers 4185, please state your name before providing your comments. Dial *6 to unmute.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Abby Kaufman. I am the secretary for the board of directors for the Chamber of Cannabis, and apologize that I'm not able to be there in person today. But firstly, on behalf of our members of our organization, I'd like to thank the CCB for the diligent and thoughtful work you put into the first set of regulatory changes under the APA. I feel like the CCB's consideration of industry input is evident and appreciated. In regards to specific NCCRs outlined in my written comment, but I know that's for the workshop. So for my main public comment and independent of today's hearing, I wanted to urge the CCB to continue exploring ways to clarify, reduce, and improve annual agent card costs by reducing the number of card categories. So during the past few workshops, this topic has been identified as a significant concern, and understanding that the fees charged are largely dictated by statute, the CCB does appear to have the regulatory authority to revise NPCR 5.150. And currently the cost of an agent card is $150 per category. And if you're applying for multiple cards, you must apply for a card for each category. And we currently have 8 different categories of agent cards. This really limits employers' hiring capabilities, it discourages cross-training, and it prevents industry stakeholders and agent cardholders from gaining a holistic understanding and comprehensive view of the entire supply chain without taking on a significant expense. So I don't know how we can expect to attract and retain talented workers if our neighboring states, many of our neighboring states, don't subject their agents to this redundant and costly practice. Some of those states, and I've linked to this, would be Oregon, Colorado, Arizona having a second category just for labs. But that's all to say, I know the CCB has indicated it's actively looking into the potential consolidation or creation of a uniform card category perhaps. So just wanted to state for the record that we'd appreciate an update regarding the timeline for this decision and any input on what the industry can do to help move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no additional online comment.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to item number 2, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. We have 2 items under that. We'll go to the first one, which is the consideration of approval of the April 18th, 2024 Cannabis Compliance Board meeting minutes. Is there a motion for approval? Member Brett? Oh, go ahead.
Jerry Mary for the record. I move that we approve the minutes of April 18th, 2024.
A second? Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go on to item B, which is the consideration of acceptance of the March 28th, 2024 regulatory workshop minutes. You've had a chance to take a look at those and you have no comments or concerns. I'll just love for approval.
I'm sorry, Chair, this is the court reporter. I'm having a hard time hearing. There's a lot of background noise, and whenever you turn away from facing front, it's very hard to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Douglas will move for the acceptance of the workshop minutes.
Okay.
March 20, 2024.
Thank you very much. We have a first. Is there a second?
Member Mazarana seconds the motion.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The next, we have several items on our consent agenda. Unless one of the members is pulling any of those items, then we'll just approve or have a discussion on the motion in one fell swoop. Is anyone pulling any of the items?
Chair, I actually need to read the complaint for CCB approval.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item 3A1 on the agenda concerns a complaint for disciplinary action pursuant to NRS 678A.510. The Attorney General has reviewed these violations and has recommended proceeding with disciplinary action. I am requesting board approval to proceed with this disciplinary action. If approved, I will then authorize service of the complaint. As service is in the hands of the executive director, the CCB is not required to serve the complaint today. Once the board approves proceeding with disciplinary action, service will proceed within a reasonable time. Once the complaint is out for service, the CCB will post it on our website. As NRS 678.510 requires us to preserve respondents' due process rights per the board's usual practice, I will not disclose the name of the licensee or the full details of the complaint. However, I will now present the violations alleged and request the board vote to authorize proceeding with disciplinary action against the subject respondent. As to the respondent, the complaint will allege violations of the following regulations. Violations of regulations 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. I would also note that should this respondent desire to initiate settlement negotiations on the charges in the complaint includes instructions for the respondent to contact the Senior Deputy Attorney General handling this matter and discuss potential settlement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I haven't heard the information about the complaints. Is there any desire to pull any items on the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I think we should approve the complaints separately and approve the other consent items.
Okay.
Would be my request.
We can do that.
And with that, I would make a motion to approve the complaint, noting that the board has not reviewed any information as we'll be moving to allow service of the complaint pursuant to what was read in the record.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mayor, for the record, I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then we'll take items B and C. Is there a motion on the consent agenda, items B and C? Member Grant, I move to approve items B and C on the consent agenda.
Member Douglas, I would second that.
Okay, we have first and second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, now we're going on to item number 4, which is a request for transfer of interest. Starting with item A, which is Livefree Wellness LLC, Tahoe Reno Instructions LLC, and 800 Stillwell LLC. Mr. Stady.
Chair Guzman, Freilich, Vice Chair Durrett, Justice Douglas, Member Merritt, and Dr. Mazarana. For the record, I am David Staley, Division Chief of Investigations for the CCB. I'm here to present agenda item number 4, which consists of 7 transfer of interest or TOI applications. Item A are TOI applications by Air Wellness Inc. TOIs number 220014 and 230015 were filed requesting approval for the transfer of 100% ownership of cultivation, production, and distribution licenses from Air subsidiaries Livefree Wellness LLC and Tahoe Reno Extractions LLC to Alexander Hose and 800 Stillwell LLC. No areas of concern were developed during this investigation. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Elise Ashcraft, Alexander Hose, and Ed Humphrey are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Guzman-Freilich, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here. Would like to start.
I'll start. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair Guzman-Freilich, Alicia Ashcraft of the law firm of Ashcraft and Barr on behalf of Air Wellness. With me today by way of Zoom is David Gobert, the CEO of Air Wellness, the publicly traded parent company and the subsidiaries. Mr. Gobert has become the CEO within the last year. He hasn't had an opportunity to meet the board and make an affirmative presentation. We would like to do that as part of item B, if that's okay. Item A is the transfer out of some licenses to 800 Stillwell, which is Mr. Humphrey, Mr. Hose. And when we get to item B, which is the acquisition of licenses, we'd like to make a brief affirmative presentation at that time.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So then we will go ahead and do the transfer item first. Is there anybody who wants to speak on, who do we have up in Reno?
Mr. Humphries, did you want to make a presentation or?
Yes, this is Ed Humphrey, and I have Alex Hose with me on behalf of 800 Stillwell LLC. Mr. Hose and 800 Stillwell LLC already have licenses in cultivation and production, and would like to acquire these licenses. Primarily, the acquisition was derived at a defect in the production license existing with 800 Stillwell LLC, and this helps cure that. It also allows a distribution license to be transferred over to help the operations at 800 Stillwell LLC. We believe no concerns came up during the investigation and are happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you. Let's see, I believe I did have a question.
Here, while you're looking for your question.
Yeah.
I had a question for the licensee and Mr. Staley jointly, and kind of overlaps the first two items. And that is, I know that.
I'm sorry, I'm having a very hard time understanding. It's very muffled from the boardroom.
Well, that's part of our new microphone setup. We don't want to look at the ceiling as we're talking, so it creates a little bit of a problem. And I'll try to speak up. Mr. Staley, you reviewed this application and the second one, and it doesn't come up to the 10% monopolistic situation. How close are they, or how far away at this point? Because I know they're with the movement, like 25 additional licenses. So we're starting to get up in numbers. So just out of curiosity.
Chair, David Staley for the record. Justice Douglas, we did a monopoly analysis that primarily applies to the second item on this agenda. After that analysis, and this follows the same structure that we have posted online, we found that AIR will have, after the balance of these transactions are completed, they will only be at 9% of the licenses in Washoe County and 1% in Clark County for medical licenses, 2% in Clark County for adult use licenses. I think we'll likely have to change the structure of this analysis slightly when the adult use and medical are combined. But this was done on the basis of AIR possessing both separate distinct medical licenses and adult use, but they are below the 10% monopoly threshold.
Yeah, I understood your report. Thankful, that's helpful and helpful for license to understand where they're at and the concern as we now merge categories.
Understood. Thank you, Justice Douglas.
Thank you. I just had really quick question with regard to the owner of Stillwell, Mr. Hose. I understand you are the owner of Tyco's construction company, and you will also be the owner, or you're the owner of Stillwell. How is that? How is that balanced with the addition of, with the cultivation and production and the distribution?
I was just going to say that I'm not really doing anything really with Tyco. It still exists, and my sole focus is on the Stillwell 800 partners because it's quite a project.
Okay, I was just curious about how you were going to handle both companies, but you've answered my question. Thank you very much. Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Okay. No additional questions. Any comments? All right, then we'll go on to, unless you have another question?
No, I just, make a motion to approve the TOI unless there's something else.
Oh. Okay, that sounds good.
First one.
On the first one, okay. That sounds good. I'll take your motion. Member Grant, a second? Motion to approve with a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I should oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for appearing.
Oh, crazy.
Okay, we'll go on to item B, River Wellness Inc. And NV Green Inc. Transfer of interest. Steve.
Chair Guzman, like Vice Chair Durant, Justice Douglas, member Meredith Dr. Mazrana. For the record, I'm David Staley, Division Chief of Investigations. Item B are TOI applications by Nevada Green Inc. And this is a two-step TOI process. TOIs number 2000003 and 2100028 and 21067 were filed requesting approval for Ray Chabon and Mark Bruno to purchase Nevada Green from Ronald Cannon, Sean Cannon, and Eric Shorten. Complete internal restructuring and ultimately sell Nevada Green and its cultivation and production licenses to Air Wellness Inc. Chabon and Bruno operated Nevada Green under an MSA while these applications were being processed. Air has also requested a waiver of NCCR 5.110 pursuant to 5.112. If approved, the requirements prior board approval to transfer less than 5% of Air's ownership will be waived. The company has adequately addressed the items required in NCCR 5.112 to allow the board to approve such waivers. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limit Air's 5.110 waiver to expire on its next TOI agenda date. No areas of concern were developed during this investigation. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Alicia Ashcraft, Amanda Connor, David Gobert, Sean Cannon, Ronald Cannon, Eric Shorben, Mark Bruno, and Ray Chabon are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Guzman-Freyler, I'll turn this item back to you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. We have individuals online?
On Zoom.
On Zoom?
Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor and Connor. I believe my clients, Mark Bruno and Ray Chabon, are available via Zoom. As the sellers, we're here to answer any questions, but we're going to turn it over to Alicia and her clients for the presentation.
And good morning again, Chair Guzman-Freyler, board members, executive director. Alicia Ashcraft, the law firm of Ashcraft and Barr on behalf of Air Wellness. And once again, with me by way of Zoom is David Gobert, CEO of Air Wellness. Happy to answer any questions, but again, as I said on the last item, we could just take a moment. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Gobert and have him say a few words about himself to introduce you as he has become the CEO since we were last here on a TOI. So I'll turn it over to you, David. Welcome, Mr. Gobert.
Thank you, and I hope you hear me well. Thanks for having me this morning. So yes, as Alicia was saying, I'm the CEO of Air Wellness. Joined the company in November of 22 and became the CEO of the company in February of 23, so a bit more than a year ago. Maybe as you can detect from the accent, I'm French. I mean, grew up in France. I'm French and American, but grew up in France, been in the US for about 20 years. And before joining Air is my first company in cannabis. Before joining the cannabis industry, my experience was mainly in fashion and luxury. And my most recent job was to lead Neiman Marcus, that some of you may be familiar with as a company. So I worked for Louis Vuitton, for LVMH and Neiman Marcus before really wanting to find an industry that I felt was purpose-led. And I truly decided to join the cannabis industry because really the industry, and I think the purpose of the industry fits very well with what I wanted to do next in my career. So I joined the industry, spent a lot of time obviously traveling and going to different places. Every time I ask either our teams, our patients, our customers why they're working in this industry, and the answer is always the same, which is it changed the life of someone around them. And that's what makes me really wanted to be part of this company. Air Wellness is what we call a multi-state operator. We're operating in 7 states, including Nevada, which is very important to us. And at the same time, we're a publicly traded company. So that's a quick introduction of myself. I was in Nevada not too far ago, I think 2 weeks ago, to visit our different locations. But I'm based in Miami, so I'm joining you this morning from Miami, and happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And a man with a fashion background, you would appreciate our backdrop. We have a fashion show. This is all part of it. After this is the catwalk.
I appreciate it. And as you can tell, I'm embracing the cannabis industry as well, keeping my fashion side, but embracing the industry at the same time.
Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome, and thank you very much for being present with us today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And anything else as far as affirmative presentation? What do we have going on here?
Thanks so much, Chair Guzman-Freilich. Again, Alicia Ashcraft on behalf of Air Wellness. So this has been a while coming, but here we are. So the structure of the transaction was that Tahoe Hydroponics was already involved in an acquisition of the licenses from NV Green. And in that time, before that was completed, Tahoe Hydroponics entered into an arrangement in a transaction with Air Wellness, really a strategic and synergistic relationship to bring Tahoe Hydroponics and their expertise on board to add to Air Wellness's footprint across Nevada. So they completed that transaction. I believe it was approved last year. And then due to the transaction of that was just involved with 800 Stillwell, we needed to wait for the transfer of those licenses before we could ensure that we were safe under the monopoly provisions to bring on the licenses from NV Green. So it's been a while. Everyone's been exceptionally patient, especially Amanda's clients, and waiting for all of this. But we're excited to finally finish it up. Again, happy to answer any questions that you might have and request your approval for the transaction. Thank you.
Any presentation? No presentation. We're happy to answer any questions. As Alicia indicated, my client's been waiting for a while, and we're happy to get to this point and request approval.
And I'll bring it to the board for any questions.
Mr. Gobert, welcome to Nevada. With that, I know you're taking charge of all the operations and you're a multi-state vendor. Do you have someone under you who's going to look at Nevada, be in charge of Nevada, and report to you, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer to that structure. I'd say that we have 2 different organizations that are working in Nevada. On one side, there's a general manager of the state that's overseeing everything that has to do with retail, wholesale, and all the part that is, let's say, customer facing for us. And on the other side, you have a team under operations that's running the different facilities that we have in the state on the growing and transformation side of the operation. So it's, I'd say, 2 main leaders based in the state, one on the customer facing side and one on the operation side.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions, board members?
I have a question. The US FED employee profit sharing plan, is that like a pension program that's invested in this, or?
Amanda Connor, for the record, that is that was a proposed transfer that it's being completed to then go to AYR, but my understanding was that is a estate planning mechanism. I don't know for certain, but that's how they were going to post at one time to hold their interest as part of an estate plan.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank you.
Any additional questions from board member? Okay, with that, I'll take a motion.
Member Drat, I move to approve.
Member Douglas, second.
First and a second, any discussion on the motion?
I'm so sorry. I just want to ensure that the motion is for the approval of the TOI as well as the 5112 waiver of the requirements of 5112.
Yeah, thanks for catching
So
me.
sorry.
Have to come
Thank
back
you.
later. I move to approve the requested transfers under agenda item 4B and the waiver of the 5.112 requirements.
Again, for the record, Member Douglas, I'll accept that, second that.
And let me also state set to expire as the next agenda date. The next TOI agenda date.
We have an amended first and then in a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Time, but it was worth it, right? Okay. Item C, 5-Seat Investment LLC and BCC Nevada LLC. Mr. Steve.
Chair Guzman-Freilich, members of the board, I'm David Staley, Chief of Investigations. Item C is a TOI application by 5-Seat Investments LLC. TOI number 2300016 was filed requesting approval for the purchase of 5-Seats cultivation and production licenses by C2CC LLC through its subsidiary BCC Nevada LLC. C2CC currently operates cannabis businesses in Colorado and New Mexico and is a first-time entrant into the Nevada market. No areas of concern were developed during this investigation. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Paul Larson, Corey and Conlon Keller, and Chris and Corey Elliott are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Guzman-Freilich, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Staley. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Mr. Chris Elliott and Mr. Conlon Keller are here in person. The Corey Keller are both here by Zoom.
Wonderful. Welcome. Thank you. Do you have an affirmative presentation?
We do not have a affirmative presentation.
I'm sorry, can I get the name of whoever's speaking?
Sorry, Paul Larson, law firm Black and Wadhams. We do not have an affirmative presentation. We would appreciate your approval of the POI, and we're happy to answer any questions you want to have.
Thank you. And thank you. And thank you for being here, your clients. Welcome to Nevada. We will ask any questions from the board, and then we'll bring it back to the board for deliberation and a vote. Are there any questions from board members? It's a pretty straight and narrow transfer.
It's the best kind of.
Do your clients have any comments or concerns or?
I think they prefer not to speak. However, just to assure the board that they're familiar with the regulatory structure and compliance issues in the state of Nevada. This board approved a MSA for the Carson City facility we're talking about several months ago. Since then, they've been operating a production facility there, not so much the cultivation, but they're excited to take the next step and actually be the licensee.
Wonderful. Well, good. Thank you for doing that and congratulations. And I hope Carson City's treating you well and welcome. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a vote or a motion.
Member Douglas, for the record, motion for approval of the TOI. In this case, Mr. Staley, anything else have to be added to that? Yes, sir. That'd be my motion.
Motion, is there a second?
Member Mariel, the second.
Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, congratulations, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item D, Clear River LLC and VC Consultants LLC. Mr. Staley.
Chair Guzman-Freilich, members of the board, for the record, I'm David Staley. Item D is a TOI application by Clear River LLC. TOI number 2300024 was filed requesting approval for the purchase of Clear River's Industry Dispensary license by BC Consultants LLC. BC Consultants has also requested a waiver of SDCR 5.110 pursuant to 5.112. If approved, the requirements for board approval of transfers of less than 5% of BC Consultants ownership will be waived. The company has adequately addressed the items required in NCCR 5.112 to allow the board to approve such waivers. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limit BC Consultants 5.110 waiver to expire at its next TOI agenda date. No areas of concern were developed during this investigation. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Amanda Connor, James D. and James M. Hammer, Kira Kakata Hooker, Lawrence Becker, and Brandon Kanitz are available to address any questions you have as well. With that, Chair Bismarck, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. Welcome again.
Good morning, Amanda Connor, on behalf of the law firm of Connor with my client BC Consultants. With me is James Hammer. He is a board member, and there is a proposed management agreement that I believe will be coming back in front of the board. You guys are probably aware of Mr. Hammer, as he has other approved management agreements in this industry. I do want to mention that on behalf of Clear River, Randy Black Sr. is here as well. If there are any questions, we do kindly request your approval and are here to address any questions you may have.
Thank you and welcome. I do have a couple questions. The dispensary, where is it located? Is it
It is located in Henderson, correct? It's a conditional license, but BC Consultants has worked with the city of Henderson and identified a location, so they're ready to move forward.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Member Brett, I don't have any questions, but I so thought I failed to do this with licensees that have been around for a long time, but I just commend these licensees. They've been the seller and the buyer. They've been staples of the industry, built the industry. The Blacks are contributed a lot of money to a lot of philanthropies, including autism services. I know the Hammers have also been strong in the business community and philanthropy. So I think this is both groups we can showcase, be really proud of. And sorry to call you out on your age, James, but you've probably been in this industry now a third of your life, right? Like I realize now a quarter of mine.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun to see you guys come so far, and
Thank you.
thanks for being so great for Nevada.
Thank you.
You don't look old enough. Okay. Any additional questions? Additional comments? Concerns? No? Kudos? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Member Douglas, for the record, move for the approval of TOI 23000024. Reference RD 229, noting that they request a waiver as to 5.112 to expire next time the TOI comes before the board as this matter.
Any second? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations.
And thank you to the
Thank you.
investigation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Moving right along to item E, Green Cross Nevada LLC, B6E Holdings Inc., and Trees Brands.
Chair Guzman, Freilich, members of the board, I'm David Staley for the record. Item E are TOI applications by Green Cross Nevada LLC and B6E Holdings Inc. TOIs 2300033 and 2300034 were filed requesting approval for Kamaldi Fendall to sell Green Cross Nevada B6E Holdings and their cultivation, production, and distribution licenses to Leaf Brands Inc., a Canadian PTC. Leaf currently operates cannabis businesses in California and is a first-time entrant into the Nevada market. Leaf has also requested a waiver of 5.110 pursuant to 5.112, has adequately addressed the items required And staff suggests that if approved, the board let leaves 5.112 waiver to expire on its next TOI agenda date. No areas of concern were developed during this investigation. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Amanda Connor, Adam Fulton, Kamal D. Findall, Micah Anderson, Emily Delaney, and Kevin Wilson are available to address any questions you may have as well. For that, Chair Guzman-Freilich, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you, and welcome again. And other than the organizational chart becoming less cumbersome, what else is going on?
Amanda Connor in the law firm of Connor & Connor with my client, Mr. Fendel, on behalf of the sellers. We're here to answer any questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fulton and his client for their presentation.
Adam Fulton, law firm Jennings and Fulton. I represent Leaf Brands. With me today is Mr. Mike Anderson. We'd like to thank staff and their assistance in processing this TOI. They were great as always. We appreciate their hard work. Mr. Anderson actually does have a presentation for you today. I'm going to give you an overview of Leaf and kind of what they are and who they are. So I'll turn it over to him.
Great, thank you.
Nice meeting all of you. Thanks for having me. Really quick presentation just to so you guys can get an idea of who we are and what we do. So, Leaf Brands, we are operating in
Sorry,
California.
who is speaking right now again?
Oh, sorry, Micah Anderson. So we operate in California. We're a vertical company. Next slide. If you don't mind. So our core function, our main business is an extraction. We're a manufacturing company at our core. We are vertical. The picture on the left is a farm that we own in Santa Barbara County. Picture on the right is just products that we make in California. Even though we do cultivation, all of our cultivation is purposed for extraction. Bulk concentrates is our main business. We provide concentrates to most of the larger brands in the state of California, as well as the larger retail brands throughout the state. Next slide, please. These are just various products that we do. So basically what we intend to do is just replicate the same business model, same processes, procedures, extraction techniques. These are just various products that we sell. Next slide, please. So moving into Nevada, we're excited to move into Nevada. We believe that we can be successful here. The business model will be a little different in that we'll focus on extraction in the beginning. We have this big supply chain in California, having a farm that we don't necessarily have here. So over the course of time, we'll build a supply chain here in the state as well. And then we'll work with other cultivators that are already operational for our supply chain. Next slide, please. So that's me on the left. Emily Heitman, COO. We're both the board of directors of the company. Emily and I have been in business together for over 20 years now, various companies. We both founded the company together. Kevin Wilson, CFO on the right. Next slide, please. Board of directors here. So both Ben and Andrew, both highly familiar with the cannabis industry, capital markets backgrounds, raising money, primarily brought in to round out the skill sets that I lack. So smart guys. Next slide, please. Board advisors. These guys are they're investors in the company, but they're also like mentors of mine. So Joe Parsons on the left, he was the CEO of GE Capital. Ed Berger was the CFO for Hubbard Enterprises. And then Mike Panzer on the right is a criminal defense attorney in California, but he's been a part of NORML since the inception of NORML. It's advocacy group dealing with cannabis. So since I think 82, he's been on board. So next slide, please. These are just some athletes, the investors, shareholders, ambassadors of the company that we have in the company.
We're super excited to bring this kind of elevated level of production to Nevada. It's going to be pretty exciting for what they can do. I'm excited to see what they do.
Good, we'll be watching. We're excited for you. Thank you for coming. Any questions from the board members? And I know you have other members available.
Just to comment, investigation indicates that you have got a good licensee in the state of California. You're now coming in the state of Nevada. In your presentation, you noted that you understood that certain things in the cultivation extraction has to be separated as the two states at this time until federal government does whatever they do, whenever they do that. But right now, certain things have to be separate. You'll understand that. As you indicated, you'd be using the same technique without your cultivation.
Correct, yeah, right.
I feel like if you can make it in California, you can make it anywhere. If that makes sense.
I would agree with that statement.
Do you distribute throughout the state, and so you have to follow different local government rules?
Yeah, they've cleaned up some of that, but yes, I mean, in the beginning, it was like every municipality was different. Tax structures were different. We had to track all of that. So, yeah.
It seems like focusing on production is set you up for success later when there is interstate commerce. There'll be a lot of specialization. Is that kind of the idea, to have that niche? Because
yeah, we've found that to be our lane. I mean, we've been in the industry since the inception of Prop 64, which was almost 8 years ago now in California. And over that time, we've done retail, we've had brands, and we've really just honed in on what we found to be what we can be good at. And that's providing concentrates to other companies. And so Nevada would be the first step for us to plant a flag, somewhere else out beyond California. And the goal is to replicate the business model and keep doing the same thing in other markets.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, any additional comments?
No. Excited to be here, so thank you.
Good, welcome. Okay, with that, I'll take the motion.
Member Drat, I move to approve agenda item 4.
The waiver.
Okay. I'm sorry, 4E. Oh, there are.
With the waiver, yes.
Okay, and along with the waiver, the requirements under 5.112, which would set to expire as the next TOI agenda date.
Second.
We have a first and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. No opposition. Motion carries. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Board. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, with that, then we will go ahead and go to item F, which is Solace Enterprises LLC. Actually, Mr. Staley.
Guzman, Freilich, members of the board, David Staley for the record. Item F is TOI application by Solace Enterprises LLC. TOI number 2300004 was filed requesting approval for Per Bjorkman to acquire 72.2% ownership and some internal restructuring. Solace has requested a waiver of NCCR 5.110 pursuant to 5.112 and adequately addressed all the items required. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limits Solace's waiver to expire in its next TOI agenda date. An area of concern was identified during this investigation, resulting from Bjorkman's unapproved acquisition of 72.2% ownership through the purchase of Jonas Martin Wolf's ownership in September of 2019 and through a capital call during March of 2020. I'm available for any questions. My understanding is that Alicia Ashcraft, Philippe McLean, Jonas Martin Wolf, and Per Bjorkman are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Guzman Freilich, I'll turn this item back to you.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome again.
Hi, good morning, Chair Guzman Freilich, members of the board, Executive Director Hum, Alicia Ashcraft, the law firm of Ashcraft and Barr. With me by way of Zoom are Per Bjorkman, Jonas Martin Luff, and Felipe McLean, who are the owners of the entities that ultimately make up Solace Enterprises. Before answering any questions and discussing the area of concern, I just want to take a moment to thank and acknowledge CCB investigator Rachel Prince, who was wonderful to work with and work through these issues to bring this item before you. If I could just briefly address the area of concern, and the owners, of course, are here to answer any questions, taking this matter very seriously. I just want to take you back. There was a rather significant transfer of interest that was submitted under Department of Tax in 2019 that exited 2 large interest holders from the company. At that time, it was intended to include this transfer of interest between Mr. Martinluff and Mr. Borkman as well. But agent card applications hadn't been completed. We didn't want to hold up the other transactions. We went ahead and submitted that one, thinking we'll either do another transfer of interest or add this one on at a later time. Then in 2020, well, as you know, the transfers of interest were stopped for a period of time. And in 2020, we had this little occurrence called COVID that really made communications challenging, but especially challenging to folks in foreign countries, which Mr. Martinluff and Mr. Borkman are. It also made it difficult for them to get the fingerprinting and the background investigations that were necessary to add on this transfer of interest. That original transfer of interest, I think we called it in the letter of explanation that was submitted in 2019, then came up for approval. I think it was one of the first that the CCB did once those transfers had been reopened, and that was approved in September of 2020. And then there was just a failure of communication. Mr. Martinluff and Mr. Borkman believed that it had been that their transfer was part of that approval that took place. So they completed their transfer. Later, when we had another matter come before the board, a management services agreement with Shrine last year, actually, sorry, at the end of 2022, time passes, the investigator identified that this transfer had taken place. We immediately moved to correct that, providing a letter of explanation, submitting the transfer of interest application. I will also point out that the transaction documents between Mr. Martinluff and Mr. Borkman do acknowledge and contemplate that this would be submitted and subject to the approval of the regulator. So it was simply a misunderstanding and a lack of communication in a very difficult, challenging time in 2020 for everyone. We hope that the board understands this, and while a technical violation sees that it was unintentional and that the parties have really done what they could to cure that, and thinking that they had satisfied the requirements in the first place. So again, happy to answer any questions, and all the owners are here present, again, taking this very seriously to address any concerns.
Thank you for that, and thank you for being on Zoom. I appreciate you being here and answering any questions that we might have. As you know, we take transfers of interest without our approval very seriously. So we want to vet that out, and your counsel has done a great job in explaining what occurred. So we'll just ask any questions and see where it takes us. Any questions from the board members? Member Grant, what country are they in?
Per Jonas from Sweden, yes? Oh, I think you're still on mute. There you go.
Yes, I'm from Sweden.
And I'm from Sweden also.
They are located there.
Yes. They're up there.
Yes. Who operates the facility in Nevada?
Very good. So actually Felipe is a part of the ownership, and his brother Nicholas oversee operations here in Nevada, but currently member direct, it is under management services agreement with Shrine. So for at least the last year and a half, roughly, Shrine's been managing the operations.
I think this is our first facility that's remotely operated by Sweden. It's pretty interesting setup. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Member Douglas, for the record, the only concern, and you've dealt with it nicely, but it's important to keep your paper trail together as to transfers of interest. You've cleaned it up, and as you indicated, doesn't seem to be any intent not to do the transfer. It'll be noted in the future that the blip has been there, but we do appreciate the fact that they've now cleaned it up and took necessary steps.
Any additional questions from the board members? Any additional comments from you or your clients?
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
With that, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board.
Motion for approval of the TOI request, noting the waiver of NCCR 5110 pursuant to NCCR 5112. The next time this matter's on for a TOI.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And with that, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who was the second?
Member Merritt?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank
With that, and we will go ahead and go on to item G, which is Blackbird NV LLC and Cannabis LLC. Hi there. Welcome back.
Here, here's one of members of the board for the record. Staley. Item G is a TOI application by Blackbird NV LLC. TOI number 240008 was filed requesting approval for the sale of Blackbird's 2 distribution licenses to Savant Holdings, Inc. Blackbird is owned by Herbal Inc., which is in the middle of receivership. Savant Holdings currently operates cannabis delivery services in California and New York. And again, we have a first-time entrant into the Nevada market. Savant has also requested a waiver of NCCR 5.10% pursuant to 5.2, has provided the appropriate information, and staff suggests that if approved, the board limits Savant's 5.112 waiver to expire at its next TOI agenda date. No areas of concern were identified during this investigation. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Alicia Ashcraft, Vincent Ning, David Ross, and David Elbuter are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Guzman-Frelick, I'll turn this item back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, and welcome back. Round 2.
Thank you.
Final round.
Yep.
What's been going on?
So just by way of
Yes.
by way of introduction, I'm Dave Nettleblum from the law firm Howard & Howard.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name? I'm having a very hard time hearing from this room.
Sure, it's David Edelblut. Do you need me to spell my last name for you?
I have it on the paperwork, thank you.
Great, thank you. As I was saying, I'm from the law firm Howard & Howard. We represent Kevin Singer, the receiver of Blackbird, Nevada. With me today remotely is Mr. David Ross.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you for being
Cool.
Hello. Okay.
Sure. It's Ning. I was here last month, so hopefully becoming more of a familiar face here in Nevada. Pleasure to be here. Thank you all for having me again. CEO and co-founder of Cannabis. Starting to work with Blackbird team more and more through the approval of the Master Services Agreement approval as of last month. So thank you for that, and looking forward to getting the full licenses transferred over as well today.
And again, Alicia Ashcraft, the law firm of Ashcraft and Barr on behalf of Cannabis 6. And I also just wanted to take a moment to thank and acknowledge the CCP investigator, Maggie Adams, which I neglected to do on items A and B. So she was also the investigator on A and B. And Maggie, as always, was amazing to work with on those items as well as this one. Could not have gotten here as quickly as we have and as seamlessly without her great effort. So really appreciate that. We also would like to just kind of incorporate by reference the presentation, the affirmative presentation that Vince did last month at the board hearing. Don't want to belabor or lengthen the meeting by providing that again, but would just ask that that be incorporated by reference into our request here today for the transfer of interest. Thank you.
And I appreciate your comments on staff. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, with that, any additional comments, concerns?
Not from mine.
I think we're ready. Treating you well.
Yes, we're excited.
I'd like to hear that.
I was just curious, you're located in California?
I'm actually based in New York. I
Oh,
lived in California for 6-7 years. I moved to New York recently.
Okay.
But yeah.
How, is there gonna be somebody located in New York or?
Yes, basically we're keeping the Blackbird team pretty much intact, and so it's been operating under the receivership quite well and fine. And the head manager there, his name is Dre Ballard. He lives up in Reno in Washoe County, and he's probably listening in today, so he'll probably appreciate the shout out. But yeah, he's been a great leader culturally and operationally for the team. We hope to continue to work with him as the transition happens.
So there was consistently a team in place with Blackbird, like it never went defunct, because was there a period that it wasn't operating? Or was
You might know more than me. No, and so
I can comment to that. No, we were able to, the receivership was able to maintain, this was both part of Herbal. And so this, the receivership was able to maintain this part of the business and maintain it, keep it as a going concern. It's been operating within the receivership during this time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're all impressed by the presentation last meeting. It was pretty cool to see coming to Nevada.
Regardless, for the record, because we have, our next item is removal of a receiver to Blackbird. Is there any special wording on this when we need to, because I gather technically the court's still slightly involved.
So I think once the TOI is approved, then we would handle the removal.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Sorry, L. Christopher Rath, Senior Deputy Attorney for the record. I don't think you can remove them until the TOI is approved. So if you approve the TOI, then I can explain what needs to happen next, which would be, would approve his removal contingent on district court approval, and that hearing date is set now.
Chair agrees, we can get to the motion to approve this, so we can hear your explanation of what we do next.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead and do a motion and a vote. Is there a motion?
Motion
Sounds
for
like you wanna make
approval
the
of the transfer of interest, knowing that additionally asking for the waiver. Pursuant to 5.2 by way of until the next time this appears on the
Sorry,
agenda.
can you please repeat the motion?
Motion for approval and also waiver of pursuant to 5110 as to 5112 until next time this matter appears for TOI.
Member Mezrano seconds that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Yay. Congratulations. Good luck.
If I may, on behalf of Kevin Singer, first he apologizes for not being able to attend, and also thank you so much for the board for being so supportive in this. We really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
David did a decent job.
Yes.
Standing for
All the council did a good job. Okay, then the next step is item 5, which is the consideration of approval to remove cannabis receiver over Blackbird NV LLC.
Thank you, Chair. Again, L. Christopher Rath, Senior Deputy Attorney General for the record. This item is one Mr. Singer's request for removal as a cannabis receiver over the Blackbird cannabis licenses with establishment numbers T002 and T003, which are distribution licenses. The removal would be simply over the cannabis licenses. Mr. Singer would remain a receiver over the parent company Blackbird and its parent company Herbal. So he's just requesting to be removed as a cannabis receiver over those licenses. The receiver requested the removal be effective upon the approval of the district court. The receiver has filed a motion with the district court for approval of his removal over the cannabis licenses. That is set to be heard on an order shortening time on May 23rd. The receiver is advised that the steps needed to complete the transfer of interest the board just approved will take place within a week. Once that transfer happens, there's going to be no further need for a cannabis receiver over the business. And Cannabis can simply take over at that point. If the board has any questions, Receivers Council is available, or I can answer any other questions you may have. If you do approve it, I have a proposed order prepared indicating that it's approved contingent on district court approval.
I have a question. Will the court need the order then? Does the court need a copy of our order?
Yes, this is David Adelblue from representing the receiver. The court would likely want a copy of that order just because they're cross contingent.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any additional, any comments, concerns, questions?
No, that was an excellent summation. Thanks for
Okay. That was smooth. That was a smooth. Well, I'm sure it took a lot of work. I'm just seeing the final, but that's how it should work, right? Okay. So with that, I'll take a motion, please.
Member Douglas, for the record, move for approval of the removal of the cannabis receiver for Blackbird, Nevada LLC, T002, T003. And I guess would be subject to the subsequent.
Member Mazzaron, a second.
We have a first, and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you. Good luck. With that, do we want to go into the regulations, or do we want to take a quick, is everybody good? 2 minutes? 2 minutes. We'll go on a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll go on to item number 6, which is the consideration of the proposed regulations.
Actually, this is like me and this is you.
Okay, go back on the record. Again, this is our May 16th meeting of the Cannabis Compliance Board. Yes, okay, we're on item 6. This is the consideration of the proposed regulations. We have A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we're gonna have Chief Funkite is going to present, so I'll hand the mic over to you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. Carol Funkite, Chief of Health and Safety. I'll be going over item 6 of the agenda, which is the proposed amendments to NCCR 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, and 13 regarding packaging and labeling requirements and some general housekeeping. I will specifically point out all of the additional changes that were made after the workshop based on public comments received at that time. I will open it up for public comment at 2 different points and discuss changes that were made based on public comments. Oh, repeated myself there. NCCR 4.065 clarifies time frame for reporting imminent health hazards to be
I'm sorry,
consistent.
ma'am, can you slow down a little bit, please?
Sure. NCCR 4.065 clarifies time frame for reporting imminent health hazards to be consistent with other health agencies, including the FDA. NCCR 5.140 reduces fees for a replacement agent card. NCCR 6.010, 6.080, 6.085, 6.120, and 7.025 have been updated to align with new statutory allowances and clarify timeframes for reporting. 6.120 was reverted to original language to continue allowance of mobile billboards and vehicle wraps due to public comments received during the workshop. NCCR 7.030 has had language added to prevent cannabis-related accessories from being appealing to children. NCCR 7.050 increases delivery limits. This was increased from 10 to 12.5 ounces due to public comment received during the workshop. I will now turn this item back to the chair to open it up for public comments on NCCR 4, 5, 6, or 7.
And any public comment in the South with regard to proposed regulations 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Good morning. Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor. I believe this might be a cleanup item, but in regulation 7.050, there is what's now going to be new subsection 3, which increases the delivery amount to a single individual to 2.5 ounces. However, the current subsection 4 remains in the version and says you cannot deliver more than 1 ounce. And then there's a new subsection 4. The old subsection 4 was not proposed to be deleted. And so you would have 2 conflicting amounts of delivery to a single individual.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, go ahead and fix that. Thank you, appreciate that.
Good morning. Eric Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor, commenting on 6.085, and it's really just a language issue. It states the proposed language is all entrances of the physical building secured with company standard operating procedures. I'm not a locksmith. I'm not quite sure how effective standard operating procedures will be at securing a door. I just think we should probably clarify that the door should be secured maybe in accordance with, but that's basically it.
Thank you. Any additional comments on the South with regard to these items? Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the North. Any discussion or any public comment in the North?
No comment in the North, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll go online. Any public comment online with regard to these items?
If you wish to provide public comment, dial *9 to raise your hand if joining by phone, or click the raise hand icon if joining via Zoom. There's no online comment.
Okay. Thank you. With that, bring it back to you.
Eric Cronkite for the record. I will now move on to NCCRs 12 and 13.
Can we, just as a matter of,
You want to take a vote on these?
I'd like to, yeah,
Okay.
and not to
I don't
general.
I don't have a problem with that. Let's do that. Let's take a motion on A, B, C, and D, which are regulation 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Member Douglas, for the record, there was some comments made as to what was proposed. I'd like to hear from Ms. Concrete as to the requests that were made. One, obviously, we do need to change that. As to 7.050, the wording, but as to regulation from 6 and 7 in the comments.
Eric Cronkite for the record. Correct. Yes, those were oversights, so I will be sure to correct those. I think that that it is the intention that we were looking forward with. Change those all to 2.5 ounces.
Need you to read that in the record, what we'll be doing, so it's in the record.
Okay. Let's see. We've got 6.085. Subsection 1A, the language that's proposed will be amended so that it is easier to understand, and it deals with the entrances being secured. As it reads now, it says that they will be secured with accompanied written standard operating procedures for security measures. And that's not, as it's coming across, that's not the intent, because that would not be possible. So we'll just clean that up so that what the intent is comes through. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but because we're doing regs, we need whatever we're approving to be so stated.
Eric Cronkite, I would like to propose that the language be revised to say all entrances of the physical building secured in accordance with accompanied written standard operating procedures for security.
We got a smile in the audience, so I think it's that one. Let me ask you the second one. 7.050, previously a 4, now a 3, the 1 ounce. Maybe simply change it to 12.5 ounces.
2.5.
Or 2.5. Yeah, 2.5.
And then I believe it should also be here 54.3 grams. Is that correct, Chief Cronkite?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Sorry, that was Director Hum for the record.
Can you repeat that?
Director Hum for the record.
Can you repeat your comment?
Director Hum for the record. Chief Cronkite, does that, oh, I'm mistaken, does that jump up to 70.875 grams?
That is correct. Okay, for the record.
I'm satisfied with that.
Perfect. With those changes,
Kara Cronkite, I can restate the language for section 4.
I'm sorry, this is the court reporter again. All I hear is feedback. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that's hearing it.
and I believe they're fixing that because we hear it as well. Hang tight.
Zoom it in. That audio is better. Are we able to turn that one off and just zoom this one out?
Mic test. Check. 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 Check, 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 check.
Is it muted on the pad? Well, we just turn that one off. Yeah, but I would just kill that one and we'll just use this one.
Okay. We're good.
Are we? Can you zoom that one in then?
Yeah. Check one.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Just needs to come down.
You good, Bill?
Yeah, we're just gonna adjust the camera and then we'll be good to go.
Sorry, everyone.
You just That's good. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That's good. We're ready to resume, Chair, if you're ready.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll go back on the record again. This is our May 16th Cannabis Compliance Board meeting. And we are going on with, this is Regulation 12. Chief Cronkite.
I'm gonna discuss the revisions.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're back on the revision. Okay, we're still back on Regulation 7 and the proposed revision.
Karen Cronkite for the record, 7.050, former subsection 4, new subsection 3. It appears that the former subsection 4 was not stricken as intended. So all of the language from 4, period, a cannabis sales facility shall not knowingly deliver more than 1 ounce, and continues on through the remainder of that sentence, should all be stricken. It is duplicative of the previous sentence.
Thank you. And with those changes, do we have a motion?
Member Grant, I move to approve adoption of the regulations under agenda item 6A, B, C, and D, along with the revisions that have been stated on the record.
Member Mazarano seconds that. Perfect. Okay, then we have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we go on to Regulation 12, and we'll take Regulation 12. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections of Regulation 12. You want to take 13 also? Okay, we'll take regulation. So we've got Regulation 12 and Regulation 13 together. Do we have any public comment on, or do you want to go ahead and go ahead and do your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Karen Cronkite. I will now move on to NCCRs 12 and 13. NCCR 12.010 clarifies potency allowance for pills and removes subsection 2, which is already in the packaging requirements listed in 12.015. 12.015 was revised to remove redundancies and clarify packaging requirements for specific product types. NCCRs 12.030, 12.035, 12.040, and 12.045 were all revised to remove redundancies and streamline labeling requirements. We also simplified and moved labeling requirements for treatment or remediation into the labeling sections, as requested during public comment at the workshop. We also took into consideration public comments received from previous workshops, requesting more flexibility in the verbiage. Additionally, 12.0301C was reverted to original language to include harvest date on the label, as requested during public comment at the workshop. NCCR 12.050 has been cleaned up to remove redundancies and also includes a requirement to provide the soil amendment report or laboratory certificate of analysis to consumers upon request. This could be an electronic medium such as a QR code. 12.065 has been stricken entirely and moved into labeling requirements for each specific section due to the large number of public comments received during the workshop and recommendation from LCB to restart the process. Failure to act on this now could result in the enforcement of 12.65 as currently written. NCCR 12.070 has been revised for clarification on advertising requirements. And NCCR 13.010 clarifies reporting timeline for transportation. I will now turn it back to the chair to open it up for public comments on NCCR 12 or 13.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the comments in the south.
morning. For the record, I'm Kimberly Maxon Rushton with Law Firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of Solace Technologies. Morning. Thank you. Prior to today's hearing, Madam Chair and members of the board, I did submit a written objection to the proposed recent addition to regulations 12.030, 12.035, 12.040, and 12.045. Specifically, the language pertaining to remediation and decontamination. That language was not included in any of the draft regulations that were proposed starting back in October of 2023. They were not proposed, that language was not proposed for consideration following the January solicitation of input for regulations. And that language was not proposed for consideration and for workshop discussion in March of 2024. In other words, it was simply added last week, inconsistent with the statutory requirements under 233B. As noted in the objection that I submitted, specifically, the law requires both 233B as well as your prior specific regulations state that when a new regulation or substantive regulation is to be considered, at least one workshop will be held so that members of the public can participate in the workshop and have an opportunity to express their views and opinions. The reason I included the background information relative to regulation 12.065 is because that regulation started the same way as this, where there were lots of workshops held, but no discussion relative to irradiation or decontamination. And then on July 3rd of 2020, at the time that the bill was scheduled to consider the initial regulations, that language was added. Again, as set forth in the procedural history of this, that prompted RadSource to seek an order of writ of mandamus, which they did. They were successful. And as a result of that, the original language was struck. Specifically, the parties agreed and the court stated that language is not of general applicability and the FDA standard is not applicable to cannabis. That is in a court order. Even though the court order was there, the reg was still passed. So then we went back, asked the CCB to adhere to the district court order, and the parties ultimately reached a settlement. The settlement was the regulation as proposed and is today before you to be repealed would come out consistent with the court order. So even if you do not move forward today, you do not have the legal authority to move forward with the original language because the court has told you no. The parties settled it. The AG's office and RAD entered into a written settlement agreement, which is in your files, stating that we would do a petition to repeal or amend that regulation. And that is the reason why I also submitted Exhibit 3, which shows that the CCB suspended the implementation of Regulation 12.065 back in 2020. And so between 2020 and 2023, the end of 2022, there was significant public discussion and debate before this body relative to terminology dealing with irradiation and decontamination. And on December 28th of 2022, the Legislative Commission struck that language, objected to it, and said that you could not enact it. And I sent it back with directions specific to the soil amendment, but that language, the Legislative Commission said did not comport with the statutory authority of the Cannabis Board, and therefore it was stricken. And so that's a restart. So now you have 2023, you have a legislative body that states that you are now obligated to adhere to 233B. It's listed on all of your notices relative to your regulations. It's listed on the introduction and the preface that says if you want to review these, go to the legislative website. So the staff has done everything that 233 requires except for the critical thing, holding a workshop before final approval. The language before you in those specific subsections as denoted has not been workshopped. We are the party. RAD submitted this petition to have this language stricken. We were not noticed until the agenda meeting for today's meeting came out. That is not consistent with good regulatory practices. Even if you don't agree that 233 applies, under NCCR, there is a standard that applies, and that says workshop, so that everybody in the industry and interested persons have the ability to come forward and participate. I'm not asking you to take a position on the specific language. That's the purpose of the workshop. What I'm asking you to do is adhere to the procedural guidelines and standards that allow members of the industry and interested persons to participate in the reg process. It's the whole point of regulations. It's the whole point of a workshop, not to be caught off guard and ambushed the way that we were here. On Friday, when we saw these regulations, we immediately called staff and said, when were these discussed? When were they put into the regulations? And it's LCB approved it. No response. So that's the reason we made the objection. We specifically request that you hold those matters out as being inconsistent with both 233B as well as your prior regulatory scheme under NCCR, and you refer them back to a workshop so that parties such as RAD have the opportunity to participate. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I appreciate your timeline. That helped me to look at the history. And the biggest question first is whether or not this falls under the APA, because by your memo, you explained this goes back to 2020, right? We've been doing this since 2020. And then looking at the regulations, 12.065 is being stricken, right? And I looked at the minutes from the last workshop, and Reg 12 was discussed in our comments about this, the nature of, what is covered under 12.065. And so my question to you then is, if we have these workshops about a reg and we get comments from the public, then we go and we put it into a regulation, then do we have to come back to a workshop? And then we get more comments, we go back and do another workshop and get more comments and go back. We're never gonna get it to LCB. So in this case, and just looking at I'm not even looking at the workshop from January or back in October. I'm only looking at the March workshop where they talked about this very subject, and there were people from the public that commented and stated what they wanted. And so the proposed regulation, I believe, is just what the public wants. But this is what these meetings are about. So I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what public comment has to say, as well as the board, the other board members and staff, so that we can all come to an agreement, because there's so many questions, first of all, whether this even falls under the APA. So with that, I'll open it up for your response, any other comments from your colleague, and we'll open it up to the board.
So for the record, Kimberly Maxon Rushton, in response to your questions, Chair, relative to the applicability of 233B, simply because of the fact that the CCB opens up a reg workshop on one part of a chapter of the regs does not mean that you opened up a reg workshop prior to the beginning of the session. I mean, it's clearly a bootstrap argument to say, well, we were talking about labels over here, and now we've added this substantive language over here that was never discussed, but because we opened it up, well, that's enough. I would respectfully submit that's not correct. But what's even more determinative of that statement is the fact that in 2022, at the end of the year, the legislature said the language goes. It doesn't work. 12.065 doesn't go. So that was a restart. That meant as of the beginning of 2023, that language had been stricken, it was objected to, and you were ordered to either go back and fix it or to let it go. And here we are now, 18 months later, trying to fix it. And when I respectfully submit is that when the legislature told you no, that was when you had an obligation to notice this language again and hold a workshop. And that didn't happen. I've looked through the comments. I've watched the review with respect to March. There are no written comments. There's one comment from January of 2024, which is, I would say, financially competitively based, not based on the specifics of the irradiation, decontamination, or remediation. There were no written comments. When you look at the summary of the comments from March and everything, it doesn't list those items. The other thing that I think is important is, as I stated before, All of the information disseminated relative to these regulations specifically references 233B. So at what point do you get to decide which parts of 233 you're going to follow and which parts you're not? So if you're going to follow it, it says you have to have a workshop on the substantive regulations. This is a substantive regulation. It's not a cleanup or an addition. And simply because a member of the public comes in and makes a statement doesn't give you the right to make the substantive change without re-workshopping it, especially when the party that submitted the petition to open this up for discussion was never notified. So again, I note the fact that it says that the proposed regulations dealing with 12 labeling were sent to the Cannabis Association, were sent to the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce and other interested parties. We were the petitioner. The point is that there was no intention to discuss remediation, decontamination, or this regulation. And now here it is on for final approval. And the statute says you may not do that. You may not use the final approval as an opportunity to have a workshop. So again, for those reasons, I'm asking that you follow the procedural guidelines, refer those specific provisions back to staff, and then open it up for a workshop so that interested persons have a right and ability to comment. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Madam Chair, for the record, I guess, the first thing, you mentioned that nothing had been done. We were in a position, Member Douglas, for the record, we were blind for almost a year. We did not get anything pursuant to statute from LCB's staff as to what they found in that. They did not tell us. So to tell us we should have done something 18 months ago, we couldn't do it because we were waiting for something from LCB. We did not get it until recently. First thing. Second thing, a notice of general application had been sent out to interested parties. You were an interested party. That was a public notice. So I think we survived that. There may be some other issues, but those 2 points I wanted to clarify for the record. And I would ask Chief Conrad if she would please comment as to what is going on with the board's edification.
Kara Cronkite, during the workshop in March, we received several verbal public comments, mostly from consumers, the Chamber of Cannabis, other such interested parties, requesting that the label indicate whether product had been treated or remediated with the intention of reducing or destroying microbial contamination within the product or potential microbial load within the product. I can't tell you exactly how many comments we got, however, it was several. It was not on the agenda as something we had intended to change because at that time we had not received direction to do so. After receiving all the public comment and the direction from LCB to restart the process, we felt that it was appropriate due to the large amount of public comment received. And public comment did so just during NCCR 12 sections. In general, it was not something that we intended to change at that time.
I actually wasn't really that concerned about the procedural posture because it has been discussed so many times. I think there is so much notice, but for the Deputy Attorney General Chrissy Harris, does it comply with the requirements for public notice? I think you'd be the most informed and the most you'd be the one to advise the board.
On the issue of public notice, I do agree that what's in their minds that we have the.
I'm sorry, I can't hear whoever's speaking.
Sorry, Deputy Attorney General Chrissy Harris, for the record, I do agree, Justice Circus, as to compliance regarding notice.
Okay.
Member Douglas, for the record, just kind of coming to the hub of where we're at. It's been raised that the language that's being proposed at this time was not put out for the public to see prior to this. Is that a fact or not a fact in terms of the notice where that final language, they didn't know, the public didn't know, so, or was that voiced at the meeting that you were going to propose that language?
Kara Cronkite, during the meeting, we did not know that we were going to have the ability to change that language anytime soon. However, we did receive, we opened it up for input on any proposed changes during the workshop, such as the consumers did, to take it upon themselves to request this be included. Any such comment wouldn't have been received. We did not feel that it was a substantive change from existing 12.065. We actually feel that it is much more flexible and more lenient to the industry in the new verbiage compared to 12.065.
For the record, Kimberly Maxon Rushton, the current 12.6.5 has been stricken by the court. The parties agreed. So yes, I can show you the document. But I would also note the fact that this language did not appear until this meeting was noticed. No one had the opportunity to comment on it until today. The fact is that the back and forth with LCB, the Legislative Commission told you specifically on December 28, 2022, we're referring this back with these directions. As to whether or not staff followed up with the directions or how long it took with LCB, that is not applicable here. The fact is that that language didn't work. The original language didn't work. It was incumbent upon this board to then now bring back additional language. And this is the first time we're seeing it. So again, what we're asking for is to give the interested persons the ability to comment on it, to participate in the workshop on that specific language, because it is substantive. It's a new labeling requirement, and I don't dispute the fact that during public comment that members of the public came up and used their 3-minute allotted time to speak about this. But please just look at the Legislative Commission record and how many members of the industry spoke also. Go back and look at the record between 20 and 2022, and you'll see how many members of the industry objected to this. So in terms of the balance, I don't disregard the fact that the members of the public have come forward and made statements, but that again warrants weighting that against the members of the industry and their comments, and that's the basis of why you have a workshop.
Member Douglas, for the record, I appreciate some of the comments from the industry, but the public in the public meetings has repeatedly voiced their concern as to this. We've been chastised. We've not done anything about this in the public meetings. So something has to be done. My concern today is whether or not we're in a position to hold this item for 30 days or 60 days to have that language put forth, allow the people to come in and do whatever is going to be done with objections, without objections, whatever it's going to be, to make sure we don't get misstep and have to start over.
Member Mazzarano, questions? Is there any harm in waiting?
Well, I would like legal to respond in terms of, can we hold that and still stay within timelines?
I think you could delay it. I mean, the other question is, we have someone here who can give public comment on it too. I haven't heard the public comment.
Chair Cronkite, we do have a July 1st deadline for any amendments to the regulations. So anything that is not noticed and done within that time frame would not be eligible for these regulation changes.
So it has to come back for the June meeting.
I don't think it would be in time for the June meeting, and I don't.
June meeting's June 16th, right? June 20th.
We could have a special meeting.
I'm sorry. Can I ask Member Drett for the record, what's the July 1 deadline?
For regulation changes, we have a deadline of nothing submitted after July 1st.
To 233B.
Okay.
It's just of the legislature going into session.
Yeah. Okay. I thought we could submit stuff after that.
It would
But it's
be
just not
temporary emergency regulation.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Chrissy Harris for the record. So for the meeting in June is scheduled for June 20th. You would need to allow at least for, if it's a whole new workshop, 15 days. Right, I gotta keep the timeline tight, not coming from being frank.
We can legally do time. I think we can do time.
Well, my concern is that if we were treating it under our regulations, we would be adopting it today. But it looks like we're treating these regulations under the APA. And so if we're treating them under the APA, then we have to comply with the APA. So what is that and how do we get there? All the other regulations are fine. We can move those forward, right? So the only one that we're talking about is the 12.045 or the 12.065 that's being stricken. And the 12.045, right?
Chairman Beasley, for the record, Framework, I apologize. Kimberly Maxine with the law firm Cooper Livingston. If I could just identify for the record the specific regulations. There are 4 additions. 1 to 12.030, it's under subsection 1, Gap is in Frank. 12.035, subsection 1, K is in Kim. 12.040, subsection 1, I is in ice. And 12.045, subsection 1, I is in ice. Those are the specific provisions that were recently added that we're asking you for that workshop.
Okay, for the record, there were several other amendments made based on public comment received during the workshop. So I just want to bring that to attention in case we're treating these differently than the other comments, or if you want to do everything that was changed post public comment.
We'd have to do that. I don't see any other way. We would have to do whatever you had at the workshop, the language you had at the workshop, that can go forward to LCB. But anything that you changed in addition to the items mentioned here in your letter and that you just went over, those we would have to, if we're going to treat it under the APA, I think we have to do that. And I mean, I know we're under a tight schedule, and I know that we're going to, if we don't do it now, it's going to be, 2 years down the road. And I know this is an important matter. And so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get it done. If it's a special meeting, then call a special meeting. We just need 3 of the 5. But I would rather do this, however the APA tells us we have to do it versus, and I know LCB told us this is what we need to do, and they gave us the approval to do this, what we're doing right now. But, if it comes to it, they're going to be, like, hey, here are the rules, this is what you have to follow. Doesn't matter what we said. So I'd rather just trust what's in statute than what somebody told us from LCB. But those are just my comments, but that's just my concern.
Chrissy Harris for the record. So if we're able to get a notice out, 15 days for the workshop by today, that falls meeting our requirements by May 31st. And then if we're looking at the week of June 24th to have the follow-up public meeting, that's how that timeline could work in advance of July. So we need to be the notice for 15 days to hold the workshop. I imagine holding the workshop May 31st, and then from that workshop another 30 days out. So that falls on at least June 28th.
28th?
Yeah.
And you have to have it by July 1st, before July 1st, before July 1st.
That's the tightest that I was working on. We would have to move fast on getting the public notice for the workshop, and then a separate notice for the follow-up meeting.
Okay, well, that's something for us to think about, and we can still go forward with public comment and then decide what it is that we want to do.
Can I ask one more question? So Chief Cronkite brought up, well, if you have a workshop, public comment comes in, we make changes, then we have to then we'll have to notice the public on those changes. But one, would it just be substantive changes? So that would kind of eliminate some of that concern. But two, I'd like to look at, if anybody will look at it, if legal will look at it, or that can't be it. That can't be the case. I mean, so many agencies, you just have the one worker. You don't have to have, you'd have to continuously have workshops because every time you change something after workshops, then maybe the next workshop you have to go. So I think there must be a little more to that.
That's correct. You would be continuously hosting workshops until
I'm
everybody.
sorry, who's speaking? And I can't hear you.
Kara Cronkite. Member Durrett, you are correct. We would be continuously hosting workshops until everybody was in agreement. However, I don't recall any situation where everybody has been in agreement historically. So I think that would just be an endless cycle.
So I think there's more to it, but I'll look at the APA myself. I don't need anybody to send it to me. I'll look at it. I know where to find it.
Well, and there are agencies that just hold a workshop and then they make changes and they don't bring it back. They just go to LCB because LCB is also a public, they hold public meetings and hearings, and there's also an opportunity there to make changes. So, okay,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, not
Yes.
to belabor and hopefully not to undo anything that has already been done that we appreciate. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Cannabis Association, AJ DLAP with the Griffin Company, and I got my name. If with the board's indulgence, I would just like to read into the record the position of the Nevada Cannabis Association. Lake Martin wasn't able to attend today, so I'm here on her behalf, if that's okay with you now.
yes, please.
And this is addressing NCCR 12.015I, the changes there, and I'll just read it verbatim. With respect to the proposed packaging changes in NCCR 12.015, CCB staff said at the March 28-24 workshop that they would plan to allow 1 year to work through existing packaging, and then will allow a label containing the new warning to be affixed to the existing packaging until all of the licensing's current stock is used up. Being able to use up existing packaging is important, both economically and environmentally, and we appreciate staff's solution. We do not see this reflected on the final version of the regulations, so we want to make sure that this is reflected on the record if the board votes today to adopt these regulations, but that last part, figure that one out. And then if you would indulge me further, dropping down to NCCR 12.030F, 12.035 K's and King, 12040I and Ida, 12.045 L as in Lincoln. We asked the board to not adopt the new language proposed in those listed items and to schedule a workshop on this language we've done. This remediation language is new and was not included in the earlier draft of the regulations that was workshopped on March 28-24. Additional respondents to the small business impact survey did not have these proposed changes to consider when responding. And these changes will undoubtedly have an economic impact on cultivations and retailers. Again, we asked the board to not adopt these new provisions today and to schedule them for a workshop so that interested parties can be afforded a reasonable opportunity to make input. And with that, I thank you for your indulgence. I think we're already there.
And, excuse me, can you please submit that letter? It was just came across as very mumbly the whole time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor for the record. First, before I get to the hot topic of the day, I would like to point out a few cleanup items. It sounds like we may be workshopping these so they can be cleaned up. But in 12.015, I know Chief Cronkite indicated that the subsection from 12.010 was brought over. It was. But now that makes a requirement to list two different statements regarding the 15% variance because it appears in subsection H and then separately in subsection J. I would recommend that we not require two variance statements on the labels. They're already very crowded. As far as another cleanup item, in 12.030, this is just being nitpicky, but under subsection 1, it reads E C, the date of harvest. I think the E there, subsection E, was not deleted correctly. Going back to now the hot topic regarding the treatment disclosures on the label. Member Durrett, I just think I have a clarification on your question. I attended the workshops that discussed all these labeling changes, and I do agree that there were members of the public that came up and expressed that they wanted 12.065 or some variation implemented, and they were confused about why 12.065 wasn't being enforced. There were statements by CCB staff that said they could not enforce it and they weren't considering language at that time. So the industry did not feel compelled to make comments or to consider that there was language being considered about the treatment disclosures because CCB staff had indicated that it wasn't being considered. So I think that's the issue here, is when you're saying we held a workshop and we can make changes after. I agree that there can be some changes made after based on public comments, but if a certain segment is being told by CCB staff that that's not being considered at this workshop, they have no reason to get up and comment or provide feedback. We were unaware that language was being considered, and in fact was told it was not. And today on the record, Chief Cronkite indicated that at the time of the workshop, they weren't considering including any such language. So I think because of that, a workshop is necessary.
I have a question. Member Durrett, for the record. I just wanted to note that we're kind of in this situation because of, procedural issues, not because anybody didn't want to get input. It's not that they didn't want input. There's just, tricky procedural situations. And I think, everybody's aware of that. I just wanted to put it on the record. My question is, the language says, all treatment will be disclosed. And since you have many clients that do treatment of products, isn't there even water treatments out there? We talked about this a little, and I don't need to be an expert right now, but is that still an issue that the language itself, even if the procedural history is taken care of, and even if we all decide we want this radiation information disclosed, is the language itself still need tweaking because it addresses treatment in general, and there could be things that we don't care and we don't need disclosed, but it would capture that, like ice treatment. Isn't there some kind of like ice treatment or something? But this would capture that, but we're not concerned about that. We don't need it disclosed. Is that
so? One caveat, I do have clients that treat, I also have clients that don't. It sounded like in your introductory statement, all my clients treated cannabis. So I just want to make that clarification. There are a lot of methods. My understanding, I'm not an expert, but my understanding there are a lot of methods to reduce or eradicate microbial contamination, not just grad source, to put on the record. I believe this language proposed, again, I've only had a couple days with it to digest as it only came out, but I believe it would capture all of those methods as long as it was approved by the board. So I don't know, and you would have to refer to the remediation language and other regulations that talk about what processes require board approval that then would be captured in this disclosure, but it would be more than just rad source. I think, going back, I think nobody is, as far as I'm aware, against necessarily disclosure. It's just, how does the language and the regulation appear? Where should it appear? Who should have the obligation? Should the retail stores have the obligation of policing and ensuring that the remediation information is on there because it's required to be on their labels? Or should that come from the cultivator or producer? And how should that be presented to the customer? And that's why I think a workshop is important, is so we can hear from everybody and try and ensure customers get the information they need while not placing undue burden on licensees that, especially like retail stores or lounges that aren't in that remediation process.
Last question. I'm sure you want to address that. Kara, because maybe I'm off on a tangent and it's already clear what needs to be disclosed and what doesn't.
Sure, Kara Cronkite. Yes, we did try to make that language as specific as possible. We said, treated with a process approved by a board agent for the purpose of reducing or eradicating microbial contamination at any time post-harvest. So this wouldn't be like UV rays from the sunlight. I'm not familiar with any ice water extraction method that is for the intention of reducing microbial load. But there are several processes that we have approved specifically for that purpose. So you wouldn't have to it wouldn't be for your normal extraction procedures. If you fail for yeast and mold and you're approved to send it to extraction for a production item, it's not including those. It's including those specific processes that were approved for that purpose.
So I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. So wouldn't it be simpler to have like a QR code on a package, and then that QR code can be changed anytime, and what goes on there is a whole other discussion, right? And who puts it on there, or where does it come from is a whole discussion. But I guess to your point is that to have a like a broader discussion about who's responsible for putting it on there and changing the whatever is in the QR code, where does it go? If that's what they decide to do, but it just seems like there's a whole other discussion broader than just this.
Kara Cronkite, for the record, they're currently allowed to use QR codes for their labels. There's nothing prohibiting that, and we have approved several already. So they could include this in a QR code or include it with the package. It doesn't have to be affixed or anything like that. It's just a notice that they're given with their purchase. Or any electronic medium is acceptable as well.
Member titles for the record, two, questions. First, we had a gentleman who talked about notice as a QR codes content. We spoke earlier, you mentioned QR codes in one of the areas. Would that cover his concerns?
Kara Cronkite, that is correct. That would cover his concerns as well as, apologize for shuffling through.
We've opened up a can of worms.
We also included NCCR 12.050. We've included that laboratory certificate of analysis would be included on the through some electronic medium such as a QR code, and so I believe that would address his concern with wanting to know all of the terpenes.
Second part, and I trust the statement that was made that the reflection at the public workshop, but we would not consider language at this time. And I don't know in time frame because, at least to my understanding, we received our letter finally from LCB very recently, and I don't know if that was before or after the workshop.
You're correct. Kara Cronkite, for the record, the response from LCB was received, I believe, in April after the March workshop.
So it would be prudent, true statement, it wouldn't be prudent because of misunderstanding as to that area to try to do a workshop if that's the explanation.
I'm not, we're gonna take this, but we still have a whole lot of public comment to go through. So any additional public comment? And just for the record, this is not the normal public comment when we discuss and deliberate and do all of this, but I think this is one of those circumstances where we need more information to inform ourselves in order to make a decision. So I appreciate everybody's patience.
I apologize, Madam Chair, AJ Delap, on behalf of Nevada Cannabis Association for the second bite of the apple coming back up. But I just want to confirm that would also be part of the workshop. The potential workshop would be the concern that we have that it's not in writing that we can expend the extent of our stock if the language is changed, meaning that there would be a grace period of sorts to let that stock run its course because of the cost of it. We would just like that to be codified in regulation. So that's specific, and then it's not just a sure, no problem, but it's actually found in the language. So we can want to confirm that that's going to be part of that discussion as well.
I'm getting a head shake, so
I appreciate that.
I understand that that's part of it. Okay,
I'll stop
thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment in the South on this item, which is Resolution 12, item E, fix E on our agenda, and F, Regulation 13. Okay, hearing no additional public comment, then we'll go to the North.
Thank you. Will Adler here on behalf of Silver State Government Relations representing Green Thumbs Industries, GTI.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm just making sure my name was clear. GTI would like to formally ask for the removal of NCCR regulations 12.030, 12.035, 12.040, and 12.045. As regarded by the Nevada Cannabis Coalition and several others, these regulations weren't, included in the first packet, and they were brought in after a long history of this topic coming up. So just a brief reference, this does kind of feel like Groundhog Day. The industry was very clear in December 2022, and they were heard at the Legislative Commission, and the Legislative Commission actually soloed out NCCR 12.065 for exactly this language about over-specification on what is post-harvest treatment and what treatments are included in the label for the consumers. So it was actually referenced that it should go on the soil amendment at that time, and I believe it was referenced and included there at that time. So it kind of feels weird that we're bringing this back up forward again, and then in a whole new way, and specifically doing it in each section of label instead of just doing it at an overall label. So to be a little bit more clear even, I do have complaints with this, language in the labeling structure it's recommending, because it puts it on the cultivator to actually label it correctly and label the use of remediation or post-harvest treatment that was used correctly, right? So there's a two-step process here. It's not even a checkbox, but it's a checkbox and an identifier. So I know a couple cultivators who use several forms of post-harvest treatment. And when you get different, remediation needs, as Member Durrett referenced, there are different techniques used to do those post-harvest treatments. So I just see a future where somebody did label a whole batch incorrectly. It went down the road, that was discovered, and then we have to do a minor recall based on an incorrect label for a remediation process, when really there's nothing wrong because all the remediation processes are approved. So I don't want extra, chop or chaff going to the consumer when we don't really need this level of specification when it comes to consumer products. A QR code or on the soil amendment, I do think is appropriate. But at this time, this language, I agree with GTI, and please remove it from the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment in the North?
Thank you, Chair. Brett Scolari, Strategies 360. Please remind me next time to get up before Will. I'm simply going to just state for the record that we do concur with the comments that have been made on the procedural concerns, as well as the concerns on the language in the the reg itself. NCCR 12 has been a long debated. We did participate in those debates back in 2022, up to and leading up to the Legislative Commission. I think from our perspective, the industry and our clients have never opposed to disclosing this information to the public. I think where the issue lies is the form and means and how to do that. And we have proposed over and over again the option of putting this information in what is commonly known as the soil amendment. I think that's been referenced several times today. In our minds, there's no difference between a pre-harvest treatment of pesticides as opposed to a post-harvest treatment of remediation or irradiation or whatever other post-harvest treatments an operator may elect to use. And we feel that that information can be readily available, can be included on the soils amendment. Maybe now it's needs to be called something different, perhaps a pre and post harvest treatment document, something along those lines that can be readily available to the public. But we're picking and choosing what goes on the label as far as treatment, both pre and post harvest, and we think that's a bad precedent to set. So I appreciate all the discussion. I appreciate the board considering the procedural issues, and we are ready and able and willing to participate in the discussions over the next month if that is the direction you choose. Thank you.
Any additional comment in the north?
No more additional comment in the north.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll go online. Any comments online?
Caller with the last four numbers 415, go ahead. Dial *6 to unmute and please state your name before providing your comment.
Hi, for the record, this is Abby Kaufman with the Chamber of Cannabis, and I chair our Commerce Committee, and we have been very active in all of the recent workshops. And I know there's been some discussion about when and how and who shared input about radiation treatment in particular. So since I'm not there, I was able to look up, I was not involved in the discussion in 2020, but a petition from the initial public comment that was referenced during that, it seems like the request there was to repeal 12.065, which this proposed changes outlined today does that. And our committee members and our members and medical patients and consumers in Nevada, we strongly believe that they do have a right to know what the cannabis has been treated with. I know that there is a regulation now that includes, upon request, the retail facility or consumption lounge can provide a copy of the soil amendment report, but that's not, I'm not sure what that process would look like, and it wouldn't necessarily, I don't know how easily obtainable it would be. I know that in the January workshop, which kind of kicked off this series of workshop and this discussion under the APA, was to solicit input on all regulations, and 12.065 did come up quite a bit. There were stories about moldy products because, it had been treated, but there was still mold. And that is, not what anybody, I don't think any cultivator or any consumer wants to see when they open their product. We welcome the opportunity to discuss this further and recognize that, this is a big topic. But for the labels, I think that, consumers do have a right to do that. And lastly, in terms of these changes just being posted, the CCB did send a notice of intent to act upon regulation on April 15th, so over a month ago, and these changes were included in that notice. So I do believe that there has been ample time for discussion and, for input on that. I don't think that this came as a shock. I know that the changes to 12.030 to 12.045 were not discussed at the initial workshop directly, but they were discussed broadly during the January workshop, and it sounds like since the initial workshop, the Legislative Council Bureau did come back. So I totally understand why the CCB took the actions that they did. We obviously this discussion is new, so I do want to, speak with our committee members before making any suggestions, but just to call out the facts that the petition in 2020 asked to remove 12.065. Notice of intent to act upon these regulations as outlined was provided on April 15th. I feel like there was a third thing, but yeah, I just wanted to add that to the record.
Thank you. Any additional comments online?
Sunflower Compassionate Company, go ahead.
Hi, thank
Please
you.
state your name.
My company, Sunflower Compassionate Company. I want to make a comment on regulation 12.065. I was one of the persons that was in one of them making a public comment, and I stand on package included with with radiation. I have a lot of.
I'm sorry, she's cutting out.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. What I don't understand, and I'm not sure, but I don't see where anyone that's not a consumer would want to make any decisions on this. I'm a consumer, and I wanted to say what's going on with it. I unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, got sick from some cannabis where someone did some type of pesticide treatment to it. So I think it's very important for not only me, but people who could get sick or would want to know or make another decision on where to purchase their cannabis. There are a lot of organic grows. There are not a lot, but there are some organic grows. And some of these dispensaries, they purchase from the organic grows. So, I mean, it gives the customer a choice, but for someone to come in and state that they think that something should be taken off of a label, it kind of seems fishy to me. I mean, and then to drag the Attorney General into it when I see that the Cannabis Compliance Board is doing a wonderful job in trying to make sure that consumers are safe. So because someone else's timing to not see everything that was going on, and I mean, I'm not in the industry yet, but I've been seeing what's going on, and it shouldn't be when someone decides they want to come in a couple of months before the changes are to be implemented to make their statement and drag the Attorney General in it, because I'm still going to stand on. I'd rather have these labels state what's in it, not just with cannabis, that's just with anything. Yeah, I went to the store before and there's a product, a purse, and it said that this product could cause cancer. That's something to know. So when someone's trying to take away the opportunities to be in the know, that's not a good look for that company. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional comments online?
Yes, caller with the last four numbers 2119. Go ahead. Dial *6 to unmute and please state your name before providing your comment.
Greetings, good morning. For the record, speaking, my name is Timothy Eliado, and I just would like to basically include in regards to the just wanted to make a statement that I'm still looking forward to have a conversation with in regards to all the evidence that had been presented from our previous I believe licensing period, in which I believe the executive director was Tyler Clemens at that time. There is still unfortunately there is still an issue that hasn't been addressed, and it seems like I had even filed a case with the Attorney General's office after waiting a whole year, going through the our governor's office, only to be told by the Attorney General office it will take an additional 16 weeks before any.
Are your comments related to the regulations that are before us right now?
Not specifically at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Is it the
public
final
comment-
section?
No, it's not. It's not. We still have a while to
Okay,
go.
sorry about that. Okay, I'm at work, so sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional comments online?
There is no additional online comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, with that, then we'll bring it back to the board for deliberation and a vote. Any comments from the board members? Comments, concerns, ideas, recommendations?
Member Mezzarano recommends that we figure out a way to have a workshop, make all the people that need to be there aware, so that we can finish this up before July 1.
Chair Kuzma, I'm afraid, like, for the record, I'm not opposed to that. The only thing that concerns me is to have another workshop. Come out with the regulation, have the workshop with the language, clean up the language, bring it back to the board, and then have to do this all over again because the language is still not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So that's my only concern. And I also want to comment that this is an APA reg. We're treating this as an APA reg. So once we have a workshop, we have that language, we make the amendments based on the comments, we're going to vote on it, and it's going to the legislative commission. So we're jumping through all the hoops, or bending over backwards, we're doing everything to make it right. And so I hope that everybody can understand our position in that we're the regulators. We have to try to, accommodate everybody, but at the same time, we have to do our job. And so we're going to do everything possible to make this as best as we can. And then we're going to send it over to the legislative commission. And then that's on them. Whatever they dictate, and that's how that works. So that's my comment, and I'll hear anybody out, and we'll take a motion, and whatever happens, happens.
Member Dredd, I have a comment. I think this is more suitable for the workshop itself, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to say it, and then it comes back to us, and then I still have a feedback that, like the chair is saying, would not be welcome at that time. Which is that the soil amendment, making a part of the soil amendment, that's something I said offhand at a hearing, and it's gained traction. I do like the idea of it being just like Brett Scolari mentioned, something like some general post-treatment harvest, making the information available, but not requiring it to go in the label until we have some kind of really focused meeting specifically on what goes on the label, because some of this stuff should probably be coming off the label, as we have 10 years of data now about what's really most important. And so until there's a reassessment, I wouldn't want to add to the label. But I completely support the consumers, the educated consumers out there, knowing what's in their product and this being available to them. So I would strongly recommend or support changing it to something that's a disclosure that's available, but not necessarily going on the label.
Member Douglas, for the record, we need to have a workshop. We need to lay it out for the public and for the legislator, whatever we're going to do. The question of packaging labels is a whole different animal, because we've moved to the QR codes on the back. That might capture it, it might not. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. I went to science class and got my grades and moved on. But having said that, we need to take the steps, time sensitive or not, to get it done. If it's approved, down the road, it's approved. If it's not, it's not. We have to make our decision once we get the information back. And we'll trust, from my standpoint, our chief putting forth proposed language and see what they get from the workshop. That's my view of this.
Is there a motion? Or do we still have comments? If not, then I'm prepared to take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we hold this item, we send it back out for a workshop. As we said, timeline to see if we can get this back to comply with the legal requirements. Notice to all parties, when I say parties, to the public, through our normal means. And that we see what we get from that, whether we have language to bring back to the board to clean up this area.
Member Grant, I have a question. Is it possible just to hold the specific regulations so we're not keeping those other ones open? Okay, yeah. So could I second with the caveat that we're holding specifically 12.0301E, 12.0351K, 12.0401J, and 12.0451.
I think there's a lot more than that.
Just
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it should be 12.
Yeah, because there was some concern about some cleanup language in the 12.
Yeah.
Voice.
It's all of them too, right, Chief? Because there's also some of the other, yeah, there's some whole.
Okay, I scrap that. I second.
Okay, we have a first and we have a second. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Sorry, just to clarify, so we would be holding just because there was a start of an amendment, but then you kind of pulled it back. And the original motion was to hold.
She only had a question. She only had a question, so she has no amendment, right? You have no amendment?
Right. No amendment. Hold regulation 12.
So.
In entirety.
Sounds like this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting giddy. No, we're basically reverting this entire item back to staff, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not going to approve any of these because.
Well,
Won't approve anything under 12, item E.
Item E.
6E. The other one's already passed. Can I just have it for the
Oh,
record? Yeah, and then we should probably take 13 individually as well.
So we'll make a motion on 13 because there's no issues with that. Okay, so just, okay. All right, thank you. So regulation 12 is what we're going to revert back to staff.
Is it appropriate to make a motion to approve regulation 13? I make a motion to approve it.
But we still have
There's still
12.
the existing motion on 12 that hasn't been voted on yet.
Just revert back to staff.
I'm sorry, if everybody could speak one at a time, please.
Sorry about that. We were trying to clarify. As to, we are taking regulation 12. I've submitted a new motion that we refer regulation 12 back to staff for the appropriate action of the workshop, if applicable, with proper notice. We put back on if appropriate in a timely fashion to comport with the July 1 requirements.
Is there a second?
Member Durrett, I second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we go to regulation 13. And is there any discussion on Regulation 13? And the board members, we already have public comment on 12 and 13. And if there are no questions or concerns or comments, then I'll take a motion on Regulation 13.
Member Brett, I move to approve Regulation 13.
For a second?
Mary, I'll second.
The first and second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 13 is approved. And now we go on to item 7, which is briefing from the chair. I don't have anything other than to thank you everyone for all your patience and your comments and your concerns, and the executive director, you have your briefing.
Thank you, Chair. Just real quick, we are going to try to get the notice out today to hit those requirements. So obviously the language will stay the same just to get that notice out, but then it will be open for discussion in our workshop. So as everybody sees that come out, again, we will do our best to get it out today to hit that May 31st with 15 days. Thank you as always, Chrissy. And then that would subsequently mean we need a special board meeting on Friday, June 28th, to also discuss this as well. So that will come back in front of the board. Again, thank you to all the workshops. I know that was a long discussion, but again, I cannot impress upon people that we always appreciate the feedback and do welcome opportunities to fine tune these regulations. As Chief Cronkite put, some of these aren't necessarily easy things, and people will be on opposing sides to this. So we are open to this. We will cross T's and dot the I's to the letter. Thank you as always to the DAGs, to Deputy Miles, and of course Chief Cronkite for these specifically on 12. So we will get that done, Chair. Lastly, as I know some folks, way off topic, are eager to begin the cultivation and production licensing round in White Pine County. We can confirm that we have received a petition from the county to start the process. I wanted to let everyone know that we are working on the formal procedure, and an official announcement will be made on May 31st, also the same day we anticipate the workshop, to avoid any implications of bias and in an effort of full transparency. Any information that is disseminated will be distributed to everyone at the same time. I understand and respect that this has been a long and arduous process for many involved, but I assure you we're focused on doing this fairly and correctly, and we recognize the need to expedite this. So I assure you we're working on this. With that, Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, with that, we will go on to item 8, which is our next meeting date of June 20th, 2024. Same time here, same place. And item 9 is items for future agendas. Any items for future agendas from the board members?
I'm not sure. Something came up with the director's briefing that made me think of, on this language, instead of this exact language going to workshop, can there be an alternate proposal discussed where it's a disclosure, or, discuss amongst yourselves if you think this is appropriate, but because we don't want a situation where it's the exact same language being workshopped. And then if you do make the change to it being just a disclosure and not on the label, then that's a change that has to be discussed. So can today, when it's being noticed, so this is time sensitive, when it's being noticed, can it be alternate proposals? One where it's on the label and one where it's a disclosure, because then you're providing notice of the two options.
It would need to be Chrissy Harris for the record. It would need to be what is the proposed language.
Okay.
So if I may, James, I'm Executive Director for the record. So my thought would be, in an effort to save time so we can hit these very, very tight deadlines, to use the same language, but with the spirit of opening it, and not even the spirit, I believe, Chris, if I'm correct, since we're opening 12 back up in its entirety, everything's back on the table. Is that accurate, Chrissy and Chris? Or that specific language is correct?
Well, so what was challenged was whatever it is, the proposed language that you plan on bringing to the board for final approval, have that be out in the open for discussion.
Correct. Terrific.
Because that was the issue that I attended last time, so that's what we're trying to address.
Okay, so we will notice that's, James Hunt for the record, we will notice that specific language while opening up 12 to further discussion.
Thanks. And we'll go on to our final public comment. Any public, I just want to remind everybody 3 minutes is the allotted time for our agenda, and any public comment in the south, please come up to the front and identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor and Connor. Just a gentle suggestion. There's been a lot of murmurings and comments about it, but would it be possible to have the court reporter in the room? It causes a lot of disruptions to the meeting. It's been an ongoing comment. So I figured I'd make it officially that it would be nice if the court reporter was here so we didn't have as many interruptions. Probably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina Skellinger, board member for the Chamber of Cannabis. I just have a quick open comment referring to SB 277. While the Chamber acknowledges and appreciates the SB 277 passing, we have come to find some of the issues that we feel can be worked out more efficient manner. Some of the requirements listed to apply for an agent card under SB 277 are redundant. The extensive list of requirements are complicated and the verbiage can be quite confusing. When you consider the average reading level for most Americans is on a 5th grade level, this includes the ability to write essays. Unless someone with an excluded felony offense also has a law degree, the instructions could be difficult to understand and the language be intimidating. This could be a deterrent to anyone considering attempting the process. One example is the requirement for the petitioner to include, example, a list of conditions and limitations the petitioner is willing to accept on his or her involvement in the cannabis industry in this state. My question is what is the intention of this statement before they've even been given the ability to work in the CCB is asking what limitations they are willing to give up. Before they even start, you're asking them to voluntarily agree to give up the same rights and responsibilities that any agent card normally entails, insinuating somehow that they are less than.
Any additional comments in the south? Comments in the north?
There's no comments in the north.
Thank you. Any comments online?
If you wish to provide public comment, dial *9 to raise your hand or click the raise hand icon if joining via Zoom. As a reminder, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. You will be given a 30-second warning. Caller with the last 4 numbers, 2119. Go ahead.
Hello?
Caller with the last 4 numbers, 2119. Go ahead, please provide your name before providing your comment.
I believe that might have been the gentleman that was on before. He said he was on his lunch hour.
I believe so. We have another comment. Caller with the last 4 numbers, 8847. Go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for taking, hello.
Hi, please state your name before you begin.
Yes, hello, my name is Karina Robinson. And I'd like to say thank you very much to the CCB members for being available to us today. I want to make sure on, if possible, 7.050. I think this might be just some cleanup language. There is the additional new ounces that is allowed, but in the second sentence, it actually states that we're only allowed to deliver more than 1 ounce still. So I think that might be some cleanup there. And then also, as far as the background checks, employment cards, and our work permits that we must go through in the cannabis industry. I'm just going to let you know, out of the last 10 years that I've been doing this, I've spent more and close to $8,000 just for work permits. And that includes your OSHA, your ServSafe, and every establishment type of card that I haven't been required to carry the illegal agent. And what I'd like to see, please, is to set up the cannabis industry agent badges the same as we have with gaming and alcohol. If I move in the industry in gaming, I'm not required to have an additional work card. If I go from housekeeping into cage management, I'm not required to have additional work cards unless it's gaming or non-gaming cards. I would really appreciate to see our cannabis agent cards cleaned up and stop being exploited. That's a lot of money. For a lot of our agents, that can consist up to 1.5 to 2 paychecks for them. Luckily, some of our operators are still offering to pay for these badges so that we can stay in the industry. But for some people, I've had to pay it forward to keep them in the industry because the wages in the industry are extremely low compared to what we are required to do and meet on our regulatory statutes. So I would just like to see one industry card across the board with no establishment types required. Our training is being put in place. All the operators are now being required to put training manuals in place, update our SOPs. A lot of us are working very, very hard out here. And I think the easier you can make it on the people that are in the industry, putting forth the effort to get this done for the operators, to get this done for the legislation, and to get this done for the CCB, we need some relief, please. And I know I've worked with Ms. Rihanna many, many years ago. I worked with Ms. Rihanna to get this card from a 1-year card to a 2-year card. I've been around for a while, and I would just like some consideration and some relief on the agents out here. This is getting very difficult, you guys, and we all know what the economy has done to us. So beyond that, I just want to make sure that we clean up that one. And as far as our labeling and packaging goes, I've been around from day one, and it's been very frustrating, you guys. And I know it's frustrating on your part, and we are ready to simplify these. So thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you for listening to us in our workshops. And I sincerely appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
We have 2 more comments. Sunflower Compassionate Company, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Rachel, Sunflower Compassionate Company. I appreciate that last commenter because I just not long ago worked in the industry, and I asked my employer to, if they could assist me with taking care of the payment for the card so I can continue to work in the industry. And that person declined or didn't offer it, but I did ask. And so I did have a cultivation and a production card, and I would have loved to have been able to learn more while trying to get into the industry. But so I even understand a person that is an agent that's trying to, because I had those agent cards as well. And being in the position that I am, and at some point, and hopefully still is approved under social equity, I wasn't able to afford even the cards to continue in the industry. So to that last person that made the comment, I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what I experienced. So yeah, I agree to everything you said. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next commenter.
Caller with the last commenter. Caller with the last 4 numbers, 2119. Go ahead.
Are you there? I think this is the same person.
It is. They are unmuted, but we can't hear them. As a reminder, you can also submit public comment by emailing cacmeetings@cc.
Oh, hello. Hello. So, sorry. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for the for that that little tech issues there. For the record speaking, please, my name is Timothy Eliotto, and I would like to basically state that I really do appreciate all the hard work and effort that the CCB has put forth into really taking the time to listen to our inputs in regards to the branding and the packaging, because it is quite vital in our industry. If there were any suggestions that I would like to include with that, I just would like to basically I'll suggest that we may want to look into the possibility of including Hoplin viroid testing results possibly. Since, unfortunately, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, our cultivators are not mandated to test for Hoplin viroids at the moment. So, if there is, any facility that is, infested, there isn't any or contaminated, there isn't any ways of really, knowing. And to be honest, these products are being sold in stores. So in the future, it could be problematic in terms of if you're looking at reduce basically the reduction of within 30 to 50% of our yield and also our potency level. I mean, eventually it will become quite problematic if we don't begin to address that now. And I would also like to state that it's still been a very long journey, just really trying to find, an access to this industry. And I'm still looking at the most previous demographic data, in which I believe there's been some work that was placed within the previous licensing round to help mitigate that issue, which is to make it much more diverse. But to be honest, we haven't really achieved that goal, and there are and there are barriers still in place, and it's not a coincidence. I'm just trying to appeal, as honest as possible, that if we don't address these monopoly issues that we currently do have in this industry here in our wonderful state, it's literally going to be it's unfortunately going to be a race to the bottom because we need diverse opinions. For example, most business models are going to go with the RAD machine, based on their business model. There are, cultivators within our communities that wouldn't even make that a consideration. But the point is, if this monopoly, continues to exist, we're only limited to what basically is entrusted by these major, players. So all I'm trying to say is that to be able to.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no additional online comments.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.